emergency response services in the country, and we're going to open that scope across Africa as well and to the world. Get a look at a couple of trends this morning. I'll be introducing to you the company that we're going to talk about this morning. But for a couple of minutes then, just before we get into that conversation where we're doing a proper introduction, let me take you back to exactly what it is that majority of Kenyans are talking about. And that means that we're going to jump into our dailies, and I'll be attaching that to whatever it is that you're talking about online in as much as these topics are concerned. Good. For now then, let me jump into the first daily this morning, which is going to be Daily Nation as usual. And they do have some very interesting scope this morning. And this is exactly what they're talking about. And it's that tragedy that we're going to begin with. Again, how 6 people escaped tragedy in an ill-fated bus. That story of that bus, the AIC Naki High School bus that was involved in an accident last week. Here's what the story is, that they were to board the school bus that was ferrying mourners from a barrio at a village in Kisumu, but their lateness cost them the seats. The bus crashed hours later, and as you know, it killed 26 people. That story has been covered on page 3 of the Daily Nation, which forms the back end of what it is that we're going to talk about this morning, even in terms of emergency response services. And we're going to talk about them also and sort of look into these trending accidents that have happened in the country of late. Good. The big story here, though, is how extorting fat bribes from jobless youth. And they're saying that this is a time bomb. They're saying 3.5 million youth were neither employed in school nor undergoing training by 2022. Just a couple of quick numbers here that I want to look at on the Daily Nation. That bribes to secure employment in the public service are growing bigger as jobs become more scarce and the number of jobless Kenyans soars. An analysis of reports by the Anti-Corruption Agency show that the amount officials are demanding as bribes from desperate job seekers has increased 8 times over the past 4 years. So in 2020, if they are asking for 800 shillings, you do your math. So it's 8 times. So you've got a part with around 6,400. If they're asking for 8,000, then you see exactly what it is they're asking for. If it's 100,000, then you do your math, according to ESCC. Now, let's talk about it. Amounting bribes in 2024, 243,651. Now, if you look at that as a proportion to the percentage of national bribes, and I don't know how to get to arrive at understanding these bribes. How do you calculate the amount of bribes that are running within an economy? Because here we're talking about what? 31%. It's a proportion of the national bribes. And the ranking, number 1. That's according to 2024. Then if you look at 2023, 163, 260, proportion to national bribes at 22%, and ranking also number 1. All the way to 2021, when the average bribe that you're paying was 30,110. Ranking was 2. They didn't have the proportion according to ESCC as a percentage of the national bribe in 2021. Interesting numbers, and you got to read that story this morning. Good. Now, before the top story here that is covered by the Daily Nation, because again, we're going to look at exactly what it is that Kenyans are talking about, this particular story. Let's talk about devolution at 12. Now, we do know that majority of governors this week, as from tomorrow, they will be in Kisumu talking about the gains that we made in devolution. A lot of topics are going to be discussed and tabled on how the 47 counties across the country managing devolution years on in this constitution that we're talking about this morning. And that conversation, again, we're going to follow it closely and see what it is that the president is going to talk about this tomorrow in his opening speech, because he's expected to open the devolution conference. And if you do know, there have been talks about how in his first 1 or 2 years, he was blamed for killing devolution or trying to stifle devolution. Has that changed? So some of the questions that are going to come from that opening tomorrow. Now, the big story then that we're talking about this morning is 2024 Chan. Teleman stars Stand Up Morocco, knockout stage in a sight. They have one game, and if we've been following, I mean, if you're Kenyan, then you should be following exactly what's going on in the CHAN qualifiers, because we've not lost any game. We've won 2, drawn 1, and with 1 match to go in our group, you're sitting top. So that means a draw, for those who follow football, will take us through. In fact, the chances that even if we lose the final match and the rest of the matches go into draws, then again, we're qualifying in that particular group. So congratulations this morning to Harambee Stars, isn't it, for topping that group. Hopefully it goes all the way, and I will tell you how that story went. So let me see exactly what it is that Kenyans are talking about online on this particular story. And I can see Morocco is trending this morning. And we do know exactly why it is trending. I'll be reading a couple of those this morning. Let's jump into the Standard this morning so that I can also tell you what it is that they have covered this morning before we get to see what Kenyans are talking about online, before we jump into our big conversation this morning. Guess what? 10 Brave Stars still win over Morocco. We're going to look at exactly what it is that you're talking about online over this one. But the big story here, that story, by the way, has been covered on page 32 of the Standard. Now, Ruto Messiah Games, and they're putting it into quotes. And this is exactly what they're saying, that President Ruto's reign has been defined by sweeping changes, sudden reversals, and high-stakes rescues, often his own making, from fuel prices soaring to a record 211 shillings after subsidy removal, sparking public fury to fee hikes, digital IDs and court battles. A familiar script plays out: disrupt, face outrage, then swoop in as a savior. Critics call it savior syndrome. That story has been covered on page 4 of the Standard this morning. Now, a couple of snapshots in what they're giving into this story. Now, they're talking about before the Ruto regime, you would only pay 100 shillings as a first-time ID applicant and replacer. Currently, Ruto's proposal, they're talking about 1,000 shillings for first-time applicants, revised to 300 after backlash, proposed 2,000 shillings for a replacement ID. After public outcry, fee for first-time applicants and replacement. Good. Let's talk about medicine annual tuition, and this is what it is. Before Ruto, it was 520,000 to 600,000, according to the Standard this morning. And Ruto's funding model took it to 612,000 for some bands, and after public outcry, then it was again revised down to 450,000. Now, before subsidy removal, we're talking about fuel prices in Nairobi specifically. In 2022, that is before September, we were buying a litre at 159 shillings. After Ruto's subsidy removal, we were at 211 shillings. If you do remember, that was the most expensive for a litre of fuel in this country. After public outcry, we went back to 186 and 31 cents, what we are buying a litre of petrol in Nairobi currently as it is. Well, if you want to read this story, then you're going to jump all the way to the Standard, so you get what it is that they are talking about this. And a quick snapshot then of what Kenyans are talking about online this morning before we jump into our conversation, and I will tell you what it is. This morning I can see Morocco trending, and we do know why they are trending. I'll read just 1 or 2 tweets on Morocco this morning. I'll pick one from Sami. Sami was saying, Kenya this morning has shown us that indeed, if we invest in sports and do it right, then we can go places. Good. Annie this morning was saying 1 million shillings is proper motivation. So what we need to do is improve the results, improve the payments for the players of our national team, and we shall see Kenya qualifying for World Cup. Indeed, I do support that one, Annie. If we pay them well and motivate them properly, we will not be far away from seeing this happening. Last one on this as well. I can see Tom. Tom this morning is saying, congratulations to Harambee Stars for topping the group. Well, you've already qualified them. They might lose the last game, and that will see them come to position 2 or 3, depending on how the rest of them go. But here's the thing, congratulations are in order for them as well. Now, finally, on this one as well, we do know why President William Ruto is trending this morning. He's expected to open that devolution conference tomorrow in Kisumu. We shall be giving you snapshots of that on our social media platforms. That is at Lookup TV across all of them this morning. For Liverpool fans, you guys are talking about this morning, and probably Felix Solana is going to talk about this more. You lost to Crystal Palace after spending all that money. Woo! How much has Crystal Palace spent this summer? I mean, your 4 players that you bought, all the way from Etikite to Vats to the rest of them, they can buy almost the entire Crystal Palace team. And then you lost again. Salah, let's talk about the basics of this one, just before we jump into our conversation this morning. Let's tell them the truth. Van Dijk is getting old. His timing now is completely out, and he shouldn't be starting. Van Dijk, yes, he should have been on the bench. Get a better centre back for that position. Mo Salah shouldn't have gotten that extension, because towards the end of last season, if you do remember, he was completely out of form. In fact, after getting that extension, that's what normally happens. What you're supposed to do is give him a 1-year extension, get somebody who can replace him, and find a way to move from Mo Salah and Van Dijk. But you haven't done that. I can almost predict how it's going to end the season. I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm told we're not supposed to speak so much because we never win trophies. But here's the thing. I do not think that you guys are a threat this season. Liverpool, you're not. Because even last season, you were never a threat. Just that Arsenal couldn't make up their minds and win the trophy because we had so many injuries. But the way it looks, as from this Saturday, that's next Saturday, let's talk about it, it's not so rousy for Liverpool. And the fact that you didn't go for Isak, you went for Etikite, I do not know. Let's see how it goes, but it's not so good for you guys. And I can't wait to play you. I'm very sure this time around we're beating you home and away. Our defense is better, way better. And Mo Salah is getting old, Van Dijk is getting slower, and those are your first teamers. I'm so sorry, it's not for you this time around, Liverpool fans. Maybe Chelsea would say they're good. Actually, Chelsea are good. Young team, vibrant guys, and there's so much competition in that team. I'm so sorry, it's not for you this time around. Without even speaking about Man United. Because if we start speaking about Man United, there's so many areas that we can talk about this morning. Yes, you have 3 players. 3. Only 4 good players in that team. So what about your team B? You think you're going to play all those matches with your first 3? Good, they're good. On paper, they're good. But if one gets injured, you're back again to last season. Woof. Anyway, it is what it is. So much to look forward to this season as well. And I know Felix Solana will come in and talk much about this particular one. Arsenal, we won the Emirates FA Cup. Sowers, congratulations to Victor Gyökeres for scoring a fantastic goal. Go watch it. Can't wait for this season. Anyway, it is what it is. Good. So talk to us online and Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiange Simba. Now back into our big conversation this morning. Couple of stats that we're going to talk about this morning before I get to introduce the guest who's joining us this morning. Now here it is. In this country, an ambulance service takes over 2 hours to arrive, and this is according to statistics. And road traffic injuries exceed 1.6 million cases annually. Let's not talk about deaths. We're talking about road traffic cases, accidents. And in fact, you find that the ones that are reported are the ones that are less in numbers, but the ones that go unreported are so many. Let's talk about, now rapid response is not just a service. If you look at it, it is a survival. So now globally, nations like Israel and Hong Kong boast response times, now wait for it, of under 3 to 12 minutes, proving speed saves lives. But in Kenya, the gap is wide and the need is therefore urgent. So this morning, we speak to a company that is trying to change this narrative. A company that has even gone into spaces where emergency response services are good, but they're saying, well, they might be good, but we do know what's happening on the ground. This morning, we're in conversation with Aura Kenya. It's a tech-driven platform that is transforming emergency response by connecting verified respondents to people in distress. And they're saying, anytime, anywhere. It's a good promise. All right, in conversation this morning then, let's speak to one, Victor Odera, who's the Supply Operations Manager, Aura Kenya. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you for having me, Simba.
Let me begin like this. And I want to start from a very basic subject. Those numbers that I've just read there, and it says that in this country, if you call an ambulance, it might take 2 hours to arrive. In fact, when I was looking at the statistics, they even said there are some places where it's impossible. In fact, if you're looking for ambulance services, then just don't. Because it might take more than a day for you to get this service. And then let's look at this, especially on road traffic injuries. They're saying they exceed 1.6 million annually in this country, which therefore makes it very important for rapid response to not just be a service, but a guarantee whether you're going to leave or not. Now let's go globally to the ones that are really working properly. Hong Kong, they're talking about 3 to 12 minutes. I mean, that is a snapshot. Even before you're done with CPR, there's an ambulance here. Or somebody who's responding even to security emergencies already here. It's just a big gap. Is that what makes our Kenya conversation this morning very, very interesting, especially at a time when this week alone, if you look at the past 3 weeks, counting up to where we are right now, we've lost over 40 lives to accidents in this country.
You've rightfully mentioned it, and it's quite unfortunate what happened in Kisumu the other day. You know, my condolences to the families of those who were affected by that tragedy. But then it just goes a long way to show you how far, or just the numbers that you've mentioned,
yes.
What we are looking at in terms of statistically, how long it will ideally take for someone to get help. And the numbers are very worrying, yes. Looking at certain markets, especially the developing worlds like ourselves. You'd ideally order a pizza online and it will get to you faster than if you had ordered for an emergency service response, an ambulance, for example, yes. Or security, for instance. And that is exactly the problem that we're trying to solve as Aura. We've already seen in urban areas like Nairobi already getting to numbers where you're able to get an ambulance response faster than you'd order ideally a pizza online. And it's a trend, it's a narrative that we want to change, and to tell Kenyans that, what, emergency response as a service is something that it's like a basic need. Think about it like a basic need. And we are there to plug in that gap, to get you help whenever you need it, anywhere, anytime, the fastest time possible.
That's it.
Yes.
They say that where companies start sort of gives us the fabric of the company as to why they believe that whatever service that they're offering is actually needed in those areas and markets they're going into without even looking at the basic research. Aura started in South Africa. From South Africa, then you say, I think we need then to go into other markets. South Africa, somebody will say it's a completely different economy to the Kenyan market. Does it complicate it, or did you read a lot of similarities into the security or emergency response services in South Africa, and then you directly related them to Kenyan emergency security response services?
Yeah, well, that's a very good way to look at it. Mm-hmm. Because remember, Aura exists as a platform.
Yes.
So our core business is actually providing a platform that is able to connect a user in distress to the closest vetted emergency response unit.
Yes.
Looking at South Africa as a market, like you've rightfully mentioned, Aura started in South Africa way back in 2017, and Aura existed then to address the security-related challenges. Ideally in South Africa, you will be able to get a private security response to you faster than you getting a police resource unit in case of an emergency. We saw high crime rates in South Africa, and that's why the private security companies in South Africa existed to help plug in that gap, rather, where in case someone is in need, we would ideally get them help at the quickest time possible.
Yes.
But then looking at it from a point where expansion perspective, Aura exists as a platform. So which other markets ideally would you look at in the African continent? And a couple of markets come to mind, Kenya being one of them. And the reason why Kenya comes to mind is because look at internet adoption and mobile phone penetration in the country. It's very high compared to any other market, rather compared to other markets in the continent. So it made sense for us to expand into Kenya as a market, because in terms of setting up the ground operations and just setting up the business operations in the country, it was easier for us because the platform was already there and the infrastructure was already there. So we just existed to bring in owners of these response units, and now to tell users that, hey, there's this service, you can get it whenever you need it.
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Let's then get into the company itself now. Even before we look at what is going on in the other markets, if you look at Kenya, since your office started in 2021, what are some of the key takeaways in the way that Kenyans are using your service? And can you tell that indeed your market research into Kenya, and just before we went on air, I was telling you the 99 number is a useless number. I can prove that 1,000,000 times. I can take my word to the bank and I walk away without 1 million shillings. Do you then realize that, can you then say that indeed after introducing your service here in the country, that you realize that with the way Kenyans are using it, that this is a much needed service in this country? And what are those numbers that you can proudly say this morning? I mean, we're talking about 2 hours for a security response, of an emergency response to come to you. What are your numbers? What are your average numbers this morning?
Good. Look, so it's been, since we started our operations in the country, it's been a journey of constant user engagement and user education, right? Because you need to educate users that what, it's like an insurance product. Think about it like an insurance product.
Yes.
You need it, right? It's only that someone needs to tell you that what, this solution exists to fill in a gap in cases where you actually need an emergency.
Yes.
So you find that before you actually have that emergency, what comes to mind at first is that maybe I don't need this service. But then when you actually need it, that's when you realize that it's indeed a must-have feature or a service that you should have access to. And that has been our journey since 2021. And the reason why we are seeing a fundamental change in how Kenyans and users in general consume our services is because of the current adoption that we've seen in the market. We've embedded and we've had our product being used by across different sectors and players from different sectors and different spheres. Think about insurance, think about mobility companies, transport companies. We're seeing now that adoption whereby these companies are embedding our services in their offerings.
Yes.
And their users are actually using it in cases where they have an emergency.
Yes.
Right now we are averaging about 10 or 11 minutes in terms of medical or ambulance response times in most urban areas, and about 20 to 30 minutes in areas that are, outside the major urban areas in the country. So we are talking, areas outside Nairobi and the larger Nairobi area.
Yes.
That notwithstanding, our promise to our users is that we are going to send you help whenever you need it at any time.
Yes.
Regardless of whether it's an urban area or it's in the rural area, it's in the villages, because we're also seeing adoption and users using our services, even in the rural areas, right? Areas where fundamentally an ambulance service is, something that is quote unquote unheard of.
That's it.
Yeah. And for us, that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing because it means that this is a need that we are plugging into, and guys are actually using the service, and we're saving lives. To us, the metrics that are key, not only on the response times, are the number of lives that we've saved and impacted through our services.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Guess what? When we come back then, we start digging deeper into who can use your service, how they can get to use it, and you have a limitation where you're saying, maybe if you are in this place, hold on, we'll be coming there soon. But even as you answer that question, Victor, the question is going to be that if you really then promising that service in the country, then you should be addressing those areas where originally getting this service will be very difficult. Once we come back here, then we'll be talking on exactly how Aura Kenya then is relooking those areas that have been known to be tough when it comes to emergency response, whether security or medical. And what have they done so far? It's a story that we have to keep on digging into deeper for you to understand why this morning you, as a business, as an individual, you need to get onto the Aura Kenya platform. Not just because you want to get on it, but because you need that response. Once we come back here at Lookup TV, my name is Simba Elijah Charles. Can I get talk to us at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms? Tiny break, and we come back.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasi wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mazuri.
Mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
People are there to belittle you. When people are questioning you,
if you don't move fast, of course, yes, you lose it, but then it's not us to push you.
But you do not know the God who has been molding me. What has he been doing to me?
The deep and mature conversations of empowerment for you with a curious mind and an appetite for oriented conversations.
I concur with what you're saying. You plan your finances, you can easily live without a debt.
An engaging safe space of free expression and truthfulness with an upheld vibrance, motivation and happiness.
So many children who are there, they are not living their dreams.
Join us for deep conversations with Zipporah Gashushe every Saturday from 8 p.m. The Deeper Conversations on Lookup TV.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a Life, transforming lives.
We're talking about emergency response this morning, an Aura Kenya overview, and we are in conversation with one Odera Victor. We continue then. Let's look at who can use this service and how any other person listening to you, either as an individual or as a business, gets to on board to Aura Kenya.
So Aura exists to serve everyone, right? Everyone in the sense that, like we said, the very basic belief that we have as a business and as a company is that emergency services should be accessible to anyone, regardless of where you are, what's your age, and any other dynamic that you might look at. So we mostly serve B2B clients. Yes. Who are then able to now have this service or this product embedded into their service offerings. Think about insurance companies, for instance, right? So they could embed our product and services as a value-added service into, the insurance products. Think about your typical company, for instance, right? Yes. So we are seeing companies that are giving our product, our solution to the employees as a staff benefit, for instance, whereby members of staff are able to get access to security, medical, or roadside assist services. Yes. In cases where they need it. Yes. So to answer your question, our services are accessible and available to anyone and everyone. Yes. We just have businesses that want to have this offering placed into their ecosystem, reach out to us, we engage, and then we're able to deploy it. Like I said, it's a tech product, so integrating it into any existing infrastructure is, easily doable. Yes. Because we've already done it, not only in Kenya, but also other markets globally as well.
That's it. That's what I wanted to go next. Yeah. There's a big tech aspect to how you operate. Could we talk about, because when we're talking about emergency security response services, that you gotta know where, if let's say a business essentially says, well, we've adopted Aura Kenya and we want our employees to also be on that service as an extension to the service that you're offering to this company. So it becomes very important then for you to know specifically where these people are, because now they become integrated into your Aura system. Could you talk to us? You're calling this a tech product. To what extent is it a tech product?
So there are various ways through which users are able to consume our product. Yes. Right. One of them is through a mobile application. So a mobile application could mean that we create a custom branded mobile application for a business with their own colors and logos and stuff, so that the user is able to interact with the product and services through that. Yeah. And the reason why we are saying it's tech is because Aura exists to bring efficiency into emergency response services. We are not doing away with the ambulances or the security firms and the roadside companies, but then we exist to make them much more efficient. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we're saying this is because we are, the moment a user presses a panic, we call it pressing panics. So the moment a user presses a panic or activates an emergency response, we are immediately able to get their exact GPS location. And immediately our system is able to dispatch the nearest or the closest vetted response unit. So what that means, ideally, is that as opposed to the traditional way of getting help, you know,
Yes.
where you'd call, you know, you need to save a number, you know, go through your phone book, you know, you have to call your brother, you know, your dad.
Yes.
Your dad then needs, you know, to work his magic around and, you know, just get help to you. So ideally where it will take, you know, 60 plus minutes,
Yes.
we are able to leverage on these two machines speaking. So the first machine is, you know, your smartphone, or it could be your IoT panic button, it could be, you know, activate a panic via WhatsApp, and then we are able to geolocate the closest response unit, and then we're able to send that unit to your exact GPS location.
Yes.
To the extent that we are saying it's, you know, tech enabled, is that right? Whereby in case, even if you move, we are still able to pinpoint your exact location, and we're able to send help to that specific location, and our units are able to render their services to you.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You know what they say?
Yeah.
That even as you talk about emergency response, the quality of response is also a thing that you have to factor. So here's a question that I got. The majority of these tech products that we do have that are existing within this industry, yes, they're good, but are they as good as the traditional response platforms, where in fact you get to understand what you're responding to? And this is a question. Once I press that panic button, is that enough for Ora Kenya to say, let's go there? But how you go there could be what is life-saving. Case in point, if I give an example of the accidents that we've seen over the past couple of days, here's where you have your client probably in one of these scenarios, and they're able to press that panic button. How do you discern whether this is a security response or a health response? Yes.
So it's a very good question, Simba. So there are certain checks and balances that we put in place before a response unit is rendered. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the user journey, you know, let's just take a couple of steps back. In terms of the user journey, when you're now being onboarded onto the platform, there are certain details that you get to pre-fill or pre-register. You know, your name, you know, your gender, in case you're allergic to any medication, you know, your blood group, and this profile ideally sits and gets ingested into a system and gets activated whenever a response is triggered. On the mobile application, you know, they're depending on the response type or response service that you want, whether
Yes.
it's security, whether it's medical or roadside assist. We are only able to send that specific unit should you need it. So on the mobile application, go to your app. If you want a medical, just activate on the medical. If you want security, activate on the security, and you know, whichever other response.
Yes.
But then the beauty is that we operate in an environment where it's a 360 degree kind of view. And at the back of it, we also have 24/7 control room operations. So the moment you activate a panic, that panic is immediately ingested onto our system.
Yes.
You know, we start alerting the nearest responders that, you know, there is an emergency. And then at the same time, you get connected to our control room, you know, our control room operators who are trained to handle emergency matters.
Yes.
So these are some of the checks and balances that we've put in place to make sure that as the dispatch process is happening, where the machine-to-machine dispatch process is working or activated and engaged, you're then connected to a human who is then able to now triage and, you know, just ask you a couple of questions very discreetly, right?
Yes.
And we are also now able to assess, you know, like the nature of that emergency, and also able to send in additional help should you need it. Mm-hmm. We've seen cases like, you know, the roadside, the accidents that happened. So you'll find that in cases where you are going to dispatch an ambulance, for example, there could be scenarios where you need a security response. There could be cases where you now need a tow truck to be able to, you know, carry this car, maybe, you know, take it to the police station and, you know, go through a certain process. So our solution ideally looks at emergency response across all the three spheres of an emergency response. But then depending on the panic that we've received from a user, we're able to send that specific help depending on the nature of emergency that is required.
Yes. Yeah. But the bottlenecks here that we have to respond to this morning again, Victor, because I want anybody who's listening to this morning to really understand that when it comes to tech in this industry, that there's another level. Because here's the thing, that in some instances, in cases of security responses or health responses that are needed instantly, is that for these tech products, there is a two-step that is needed. Whereas for the old platforms, probably could be a one-step, in a sense of, I don't want to preempt it. That's where I want you to come in and respond on it. How close is your service to a one-step service that it's right here? I don't gotta think about it. I don't gotta turn on my data to get in touch with Aura Kenya. I don't have to do this. Like, it's right here. I mean, that's what's gonna make this an emergency response. It's what is going to save the 3-5 minutes that we're talking about. It's a difference between life and death. Could you respond to that? Could you respond to that to anybody who's listening to this morning?
Yeah. So to go back to the point where I talked about how users are able to consume our services, I only spoke about the application, the phone, mobile app. We're able to download it. It sits on your phone and activate it. The other way is through wearable devices. Okay. Yes. Whereby you're able to, just like your watch, for instance, right? So in case of an emergency, what you do, just very discreetly, press it, and that's it. Like, that's all you have to do.
That's it.
That's all you have to do.
So hold on.
Yeah.
So if you come to this company, probably you come to Lookup TV, and then Lookup TV on board Aura Kenya, and then says, well, for our service, we would like you to extend this to our employees at Lookup TV, get them covered as well as part of the package. And we're going to talk about the packages. Does that mean that you come in as Aura Kenya and say, since the employees have been covered, we have to extend these wearables to them?
It all depends on the client's needs, right? Because it's not cast on stone how our services are going to be consumed. Yes. It only depends on how our clients and our users would ideally want to consume that service. Look, we've had guys who are like, we don't even need the mobile application, we just need a phone number. So the phone number ideally connects you to an IVR, the IVR then connects you to our system, and you're able to get the services. Yes. We've gotten other clients who are like, just embedded into our existing infrastructure, right? An API kind of integration. So if, for example, Lookup TV have a mobile application that they use, we are then able to integrate into that mobile application, because these are solutions that Lookup TV users or members of staff use on a day-to-day. So in terms of breaking that customer journey, you'd not want to do that. So Lookup TV will then opt for a direct API integration, and then the users would consume or get access to the services through the Lookup TV application. Yes. So there are various ways, and that's why now when we say technology, it's not only focused on one form of technology. Yes. There are different ways, there are various ways, because we understand that the user, the client, at the end of the day, consumes these services differently, and we'd not want to, put a blanket on how they'd want to do it. So that's why we now have different ways, different modalities through which these users are able to consume the services and get access to these emergency response solutions.
Pretty much. Yeah. Which takes me to that particular question as well. If you go to majority of businesses, security becomes an area that they have to invest in heavily. I mean, you've not gone to any other business where there is no security guard at the point of entrance or exit. And I would like to imagine or think that this is a security offering from these companies. Are you competing with them? How are you integrating with these security services? Because partly what we've seen is the majority of these security services are now morphing into something different. That once we're here, we're going to give you a unit that's going to be able to respond to any emergency that you may have here. It's a good thing that you started in 2021. If you do remember, in 2020, that's when security companies across the world then said, oh, hold on, we got to wake up. Because we can't just say we're going to offer security. There is more that is needed as a security service. The majority of them were trained on basic medical services to employees of a particular facility. Emergency response, you got to do this if this happens, isn't it? So what do you fall in that emerging trend since 2020? And it's interesting that you started in 2021. Is that something that you figured that regardless of what's going on this side, our space is brighter? What is that space, Victor?
Very good question, Simba. We basically exist to augment. We ideally not taking away business from these security companies or medical companies, right? And we exist to bridge that tech gap, that tech infrastructure gap that existed. And the reason why, to answer your question, the reason why we came in the market in 2021 is that we saw a certain trend whereby tech adoption, people were starting to embrace technology a lot, right? And Kenya as a market is very prime for us, for such, in terms of embracing technology trends and some of these digital services. So for these security companies, we basically exist to augment their services and their offerings. So we ideally tell them that, hey, we come in and give you an otherwise different market that you would ideally not have had access to, right? Because the market is huge, right, in terms of people who need these services.
That's it.
And we exist to help these companies get access to these users and these users to get access to this company, and we are doing it through technology, simply put, right? That's the first point. And then the second point is that when it comes to bringing in our services, we look at aggregating this, these firms or these providers. And that is now why we are able to respond to and get users the help that they need in the shortest time possible, because we have a database and a network of responders spread out across the country, because we've aggregated these providers across the country, as opposed to just going at it alone, whereby it's, say, one security firm, and then you're not able to scale your footprint across the country. Now, the net effect of that from a user perspective is that if a user ideally deals with one security firm, and they are in Mtito, for example, right? And this security firm does not have presence in Mtito. It will then mean that in case there's a need from this user for their services, they're not going to be able to fulfill it. And then, we are going to see churn, and, the user will fall off. And for us, we exist and say that, okay, let us look at, which providers exist in a certain area. Okay, bring them on board. Of course, they need to go through a certain rigorous vetting process. Bring them on board. They need to meet all the regulatory and the regulatory items that they need to meet. And then once they come on board, we train them on the services. And then, in case this user needs these services, whether they're in Mandera or Kisumu or Nairobi, they're still going to get access to the same kind of response and quality service that they would have ideally gotten in an area like Nairobi. So regardless of where they are, they're able to get access to these services. And that is why we are able to do it, and we are able to promise that you're able to get access to help anywhere, wherever.
That's it.
Yes.
The same markets are never really 100% the same. That you can pick your lessons from the South African market, but then when you jump into the Kenyan market, you say, we gotta readjust. What are some of the readjustments, Victor, that you've had to make since 2021 to date? I mean, 4 years in the running means you figured out the market. I mean, businesses that fail never see the second birthday. You guys are beyond that mark now. What are some of the adjustments you've had to make for you to say, now we figured out the Kenyan market?
Look, for us, the main thing, right, compared to a market like South Africa, it's a very mature market for us as a business,
yes.
Has been on the user education journey.
That's it.
So coming into this, we thought then that, the adoption would be, like a walk in the park. But then we came to the realization that, you need to educate people that security, emergency response services is a service that you need to have, similar to, just you having your meal, you having your food. It's the same kind of level that you need to have these emergency response services. So it has been, and for us, that constantly, changing and, reworking our angle where we're educating the masses about, emergency response as a service and as a solution for them to have constantly with them has been the greatest learning for us in the Kenyan market.
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty much. Yeah. Guess what? I gotta ask you about this then. When you're saying that you're going to build a nationwide network, because that's the promise then that you're giving your clients who are listening to this morning and the customers as well. I said, well, there's going to be a nationwide network. Is it an invitation for collaboration where you're saying that Aura Kenya is figuring out this space? And what does it take tech-wise for you to figure this out? And somebody told me to ask you this question directly, that there are places in this country where even internet connectivity is still probably on 2G. Some other places, there is no connectivity. And you find that those are the places that ideally would really need that service. But then your client probably is in Suswa somewhere, which is a quick developing area, cannot onboard because they're not covered well by either internet. And so it's going to be hard to figure out these clients in these areas. How are you building that nationwide network? Yes.
So to answer your question, yes, it is an invitation for collaboration. We do believe in the power of partnerships. We do believe in the power of collaboration.
Yes.
Because, that's the only way to grow.
Yes.
When it comes to accessibility, right, you've mentioned some, remote areas. And my point is that, again, we are not doing away with the traditional kind of way of getting help. But our primary way of getting help is tech-based, where you have technology driving the service. But then there are other ways as well. Okay, so there is, the first layer is technology. In cases where the technology is ideally non-existent, right? You get to an area where there is, like literally no internet connectivity. We also have other modalities as well, right? Like you can actually make a phone call to a certain toll-free number, which comes to us, we ingest it, we're able to, get your location over the phone, and then we're able to send help to you. So like I said, we are not getting rid of any modality that a user is able to get help. We are simply trying to make it better. And now this is now what calls for collaboration between private businesses like ourselves and other private players and the government as well. So in areas where the infrastructure is poor, then it's going to affect how quick and how fast response is going to get there. So some of these data and some of this information is now where, when it comes to a partnership and collaboration point of view, we'd ideally tell governments and county governments that, hey, you guys, need these emergency services. Why don't you build roads for them? Why don't you have, telephone connection in this area? And through this, we're able to now see much more acceptance, even from public and private spaces, whereby we're able to work together to achieve a greater good in service to the Kenyan people.
That's it.
Yes.
Right. 2 minutes before we take a final break, and come back and clear this.
Yeah.
And I was told to ask you this question. But the name Aura is very interesting. And then they say, well, are you going to compete to have your brand sort of accepted in the Kenyan market? Where, even before asking
Yeah.
Somebody will tell you, call this number.
Yeah.
Call this number.
Yeah.
How short is your call number? How short is your call call? How unique is it?
Yeah.
To the point that when it comes now to the branding of the Kenyan market, we'll be like, well, call 999, call 911.
Yeah.
Just like we know
Yeah.
how this happens in other markets.
Yeah.
We'll talk about especially your call number.
Yeah. Look, so fundamentally, when it comes to branding, like you said, you need to remain top of mind. You need to be the go-to person. In case of an emergency, I know I'll always rely on Simba. I need help, call Simba, right? And that is where we are heading towards. When it comes to how the brand is known in the market and the acceptance, it is a journey. It's something that we are constantly working on. It's something that we are constantly building towards, and there's no one answer to that question, in that all these major companies will always brand. They always spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising. That's why Nike still advertises, and Aura is no different. Ideally, what we want to be known for is your help partner. You need help, call Aura. You need emergency response services, call Aura. But then it will then depend on how these businesses would want to position their brand and the solution and the product to their users. Yep.
Interesting questions that I got again on this one. I want to take a tiny break as well.
Okay.
And come back, clear them.
Yep.
Somebody asked me, if it's an emergency response service, is it possible for me to say, I don't have to register my business, but I can give them a one-off? That there's a number that I have.
Yep.
In my business, that in case of an emergency, I can give Aura a one-off call. I don't have to know them, that I just have to know that they are in this space and they're good in this space. Maybe we're talking about 30 minutes. I want to use them tomorrow when there's an emergency in my company. Is that a possibility for Aura Kenya, since you're talking about B2B relationship where a business has to directly work with you on a subscription model? Once we come back right here at Look Up TV, we are still talking about emergency response services. Can be health, can be security. Once we come back, is it possible for you to work with them just on a one-off? And we're also going to go back to how they've grown from South Africa and see exactly what has worked for them in the South African market. I relate that to the Kenyan market. We're going to come back for the last part of our conversation this morning. Talk to us at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. I am Akane Seba. Listen closely. It is the sound of your business day beginning.
The morning traffic, a chance for new opportunities ahead.
But the next policy that would affect your life is being passed by your leader.
Mimi kama kiongozi wa taifa hii, I must do the right thing for every citizen.
The government will never allow what happened in Kenya to ever happen again.
Ilisemekana ni ya Wakikuyu peke yake, mimi ningafukuzwa.
Wacha kushinda ukitisha watu ukituambia ati enough is enough. Watu ya Kenya umewafinya na wamelia siku nyingi kuliko.
Unasema one term kwa sababu
we will not allow our country to be banned.
We shall be there to quieten the noise
and help you make sense of it all.
Start your day with a workout routine, an exciting moment of exercise that is simple but powerful for your ultimate fitness. Build your strength, shape and body muscles with lunges, push-ups, squats, burpees, planks, dumbbells and more. Let's work out every Monday to Saturday from 6:30 a.m. on Fitness Zone, a one surefire way to attack your fitness regimen effectively.
taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
Into the final part of our conversation this morning, and in case you are just joining us, we are in conversation with Aura Kenya, just promising a security, or let me say, an emergency response turnaround in this country, either security or health. And I'm saying that the numbers are averaging around 30 minutes, when the national average is 2 hours. So they're telling you that indeed we're gonna respond. And the longest period we can take is 30 minutes and we shall be there. And if you do know, that is the difference between life and death. But then they're coming in as a tech expert in this area. Good, let's then talk about that particular question that I gave to you before we went on break with individuals who are saying, good, I want to know your number and I want to work with you directly, that I want to have your number in my office, in the various offices, in my fire assembly points, so that if something goes wrong, you're just a call away. Is that a possibility? How are you going to respond to that question?
Absolutely. And before I answer that question, Simba,
yes.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes.
Our current average is about 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yes, it's about 10 minutes.
Is that regardless of where you are?
No. That's in urban areas, in most urban areas. Mm-hmm. In Nairobi, we've seen cases where we respond in a minute, others even less than a minute. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it depends. But yes. Then our current average is about 10 minutes yes. To get you an ambulance or a security response. Right. So I just wanted to get that through.
And that's really quality, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. I mean that's quality. Now this is where now yes. The technology aspect comes in. Right. And it's good that it's proven to work.
Is that beating the best known ones that we talk about, like in Hong Kong, where they're taking 3 to 12 minutes?
Look. We'd want to get there. There are of course certain nuances and certain yes. Things that might come in the way, from an infrastructure perspective, that's and some of the other things. Mm-hmm. But then that is ideally the kind of levels that we'd want to get to, yeah. Right? And we exist to help the different stakeholders involved in this, give them that information and tell them that, hey, guys, we can actually do this.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I'll be coming to that question, by the way. It's a big question.
Correct.
And you got to be careful you answer it, because majority of people are listening.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So to answer your question yes. About businesses wanting our services, like I said, we exist in different shapes and forms.
That's it.
So when it comes to the direct client, now the B2C segment of our business, we do exist through our partners, our distribution partners. And if someone like Simba today would come in and say that, okay, I need a number to call, I need these guys to get here, then they can call 0713 000 900.
That's it.
So this exists to serve our direct to customer segment of the business.
Yes.
But then for the businesses themselves, then it's a different modality altogether, where we now need to assess a couple of things, the need and how they want to position it. So they're able to get in touch with us through info@aura.services.
Yes.
And then we're able to sort them out.
Pretty much. Good. Let's go to that question then. It's interesting because you're collaborating essentially and making these services available to the rest of the areas that you want them to be fundamentally available at, or where ideally it's been tough for these areas to get a service. But you see, when you relate to your client, Victor, I'm dealing with Aura Kenya. That's done and dusted. That when I see you, I know that this service that I'm getting is Aura Kenya. But you are a tech product within this particular space. How do you make sure then that the other people and businesses that you collaborate with represent the brand, the ideology, the feeling that whoever is coming through that door is going to represent the same passion and composure and promise that Victor is painting this morning? How do you make it an Aura service when essentially you are collaborative? So that's a quality question that I'm going to put across to you this morning.
Correct. It is a quality question, Simba. And we have a team that ideally breathes, eats and sleeps quality services and quality assurance. This is both on the supply side of the business and on the demand side of the business. So looking at our ecosystem and how we exist, we want these private companies or these service providers to speak the same language that we speak. So there is a team that handles that, from your trainings, your retrainings, and your quality control ideally. So in case, or rather after every, service has been rendered, our quality team then, goes through each and every emergency that has been, responded to, and we're able to walk through, what happened, how was it handled, and then we're able to plug in any gaps that we see, or rather that we think might have been missed. Okay, and with this, we are able to meet, the customer's expectation when we now walk to them and tell them that, hey, this is the kind of service that you're going to need. Now, on the client side is the same conversation, right? So after coming through and, you're now our client, we then walk with you through that journey. We talk to you, we advise you on how to communicate this product, what kind of tone to use, right? And we ideally look at it from, like you said, a collaborative perspective. We'd step in and, handle some certain elements of that engagement where we are able to tell the end user, ideally, what our service does, what it represents, and what that means to you as the end user through that business. So it's a never-ending journey where we engage users within our ecosystem, within our network, and tell them what Aura represents and what Aura is ideally as a brand, so that we are always top of mind.
That's it. I'm going to talk about that. I've gone to scenarios where you've accessed a product online through a link, but then the service that you get at the end of the day, you're like, oh man, it's not deserving. So Victor, are you saying that constantly, other than you just coming in to bridge the gap for emergency response services in the country, you're also constantly doing trainings to your collaborators? So for example, if you collaborate with a security firm, you're saying that this is how you are supposed to handle our clients. Because let's not get it wrong, regardless of who walks through my door, if something goes wrong, then it's gotta be you that I'm calling, not this company that has come through my door. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And quality is key.
Yes.
Right? As is any other business, we take it very seriously. And that is why we'd want Simba accessing our product and services in Nairobi to get the same kind of feeling and service while using the product in Eldoret. So it does not matter where you are in the country. The quality needs to remain the same. the quality needs to speak of what Aura is as a brand and what Aura is as a service.
That's it.
And that is why when it comes to quality assurance and the process, the entire process of quality assurance, regardless of the service provider that we work with, it needs to speak about what we tell our customers and tell our users in terms of the customer promise, that this is what you're getting regardless of where you are in the country.
That's it.
Correct.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I want to talk about policy and regulation a little bit before we look at some of the lessons that you guys have taken from the South African market. I mean, your service then has a big chunk of a policy element where if you're existing in a particular county, and especially now the Kenyan government, you're looking at a collaboration that essentially looks into areas like insurance. Because again, if it's going to be an emergency response, it starts there, ends there. That's what makes it a bit seamless. How have you been going about collaborating with the hospitals and government agencies and insurance companies in the Kenyan market?
100%. And so all these verticals represent different segments of our clients, excuse me, in the business.
Yes.
So you look at insurance companies, for instance. We've seen insurance companies taking up these products and these services and giving it as a value-added service to their policyholders. So let me give an example. This is just an example, a random example. Say you hold an insurance, rather your car insurance, you've taken it with insurance company X.
Yes.
So how ideally this company will come in, they will say, okay, Simba has been a loyal client of ours for the last 5 years. Let us give this product and this service to Simba as a sign of gratitude for him being our client. And ideally now Simba would enjoy some of these services. Insurance companies are seeing that this service speaks to already an existing need, right, in terms of a value-added service.
Yes.
And it does not end there. It does not end with insurance companies alone. Mobility service providers, whereby, they embed it, if you're a transport company, in case of an accident, then you can embed our product and our solution to your offering, and your users, your clients are able to get access to these services. So collaboration is key, and we are seeing a lot of use cases across different industries and different sectors whereby this solution and this product will be ideal to address certain use cases. Again, remember, emergency service is a need.
That's it.
Right? So it does not matter where you operate. It could be Lookup TV, for instance, right? But you still need emergency services, right? This product and this solution exists for everyone. So the use cases might be different, but then it serves to it exists to serve clients in different sectors.
Well, for majority of the insurance companies that you've spoken to, because also that speaks to how, like, use the word woke a market is to the need that you're talking about this morning, have they been saying, interesting, we're gonna adopt that particular service for a couple of our policy holders because they do understand the importance of this? Has the reception been, I would say, over the past couple of years, motivating for you to say?
100%. And like I said, it's not only insurance companies, right? Players in the tech space, companies, where HRs want to give this solution to employees. Businesses want to give this solution to their users and to their clients. So the uptake has been really good. But then how these businesses are positioning the product remains a preserve of the business, because they understand their customers' needs more and better compared to Aura. So Aura only exists to make them look good.
That's it.
Right? And that's how we position
That's it. Talk to me about county governments, because now they play a big role in the quality of services that are happening at the county levels. Have they been responding? Because this will speak to them directly. You're saying that as a county government, you need to be very good at emergency response, and you as Aura Kenya will be telling them that we have a solution for that. Could you summarize your experience with the county governments in Kenya?
Yeah, correct. Not only county governments, so governments, both national government and county government, there's a critical need for our services.
Yes.
So we've stepped in, to offer, training services, offer our product, just advise on, how the technology could be used to help bridge and make emergency response services faster, much more efficient, and much more reliable.
Yes.
So at the end of it all, we are seeing a lot of uptake from both governments and non-government organizations, whereby the product, the technology ideally serves a certain need that
Yes.
is existent, and
Yes.
we are only stepping in to address that need.
That's it.
Yeah.
What are some of your biggest partners in the Kenyan market?
We do work with different companies,
Yes.
St. John's Ambulance,
That's it.
different training partners, security firms as well,
Yes.
KK Securities and
Yes.
all. And again, like I said, we work with companies that have shown willingness to work with us.
That's it.
And not only the reputable companies that have been existent for 100 years plus, right? Even newer companies, right? So we are seeing guys who want to plug into our ecosystem and want to be part of that ecosystem and infrastructure, that they're able to step in and say that, hey, look, we're helping to save lives. And the beauty about it is that when it comes to our services and just the nature of how we're looking at it and how we aggregate these services, we work with very niche, security companies rather, and these companies exist again in different parts of the country.
Yes.
So a company that may exist in Kisii, for example, might not exist in Kwale, right?
Yes.
So for us, it will make much more sense to work with localized companies and service providers who are based in some of these areas.
That's it.
And it extends, to companies who have a nationwide kind of outreach to the very localized product service providers in the country.
That's it.
Yeah.
Good. Now we have 8 minutes. I want to make this special then, as we get close to the end of our conversation this morning. I want to start like this, your journey in the country, and what are some of the biggest lessons? Give me 3 under security and emergency response services that you've picked from South Africa.
One thing that I've seen, this is quite interesting.
Yes.
Compared to a market like South Africa, for example, the safety levels in the country are much better compared, to that market. So we are seeing a lot of crime-related incidences in a market like South Africa, for example, compared to Kenya, gun-related. Sorry.
Yes.
And it also speaks to the different markets, right? Like the differences in these markets. For instance, in Kenya, our security firms are not armed, right? So by law, they're not armed.
They do not carry.
They do not carry firearms.
Yes.
But then you go to a market, a different market like South Africa, for instance, they carry firearms. So it's very interesting to understand that our product exists to serve these different markets, right? And it's working in all these different markets. So in Kenya, we are seeing a good uptake of security services, whereby someone is just feeling unsafe. I feel unsafe. I just need someone to walk with me, or just someone to escort me, for instance,
Yes.
home. Right?
Yes.
I feel like someone's following me.
Yes.
Right? So we are seeing guys now, coming up and using our services for cases like that. But then you see, anything that is defined as security related is very diverse, and you cannot put a blanket to it.
That's it.
So for security, for example, we exist to plug that need and that gap, where in case Simba today feels that he needs a security service, then we will respond.
That's
right?
it.
So it's very diverse and it's very dynamic as well.
That's it.
Yeah.
Which then takes me to my next question.
Yeah.
Before I get to ask you another one. How then do you export that market into that product specifically into the country, where in this market we do know that security guards do not carry, but in South Africa, they do carry. Did you have to tweak it and say then what do you have to do when you're bringing up product into the Kenyan market? Yes.
100%. Like, the product needs to work in that market. But then the beauty about it is that since it's a tech product, the tech infrastructure can be plugged into any market. You can literally take it to your remotest and whichever country that you want, but then it will still work. But then when it comes to the actual operationalization of the services, then that's where now the tweaking needs to be done. So it needs to speak to the country's policies and regulations and what you need to check before you offer that service. So if Kenya as a market does not allow carrying of firearms, then you need to operate within that framework, right? And give users access to the product. Remember that the tech product is constant, but then the operationalization of the services is what then needs to be very localized to suit the different markets that you operate in.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Between security and health in a growing economy like Kenya's, where have you found the market penetration further? Is it in security or in health? Where are you responding to?
Ideally both. And the reason why I say ideally both is because where a health-related matter is being addressed, then chances of a security incident being present might be there, right? Or rather is there, and vice versa. So think about it this way. Let me just give a quick rudimentary example. So in case of an accident, for example, right, whereby there's been an accident and there's a need for crowd control, right? We are able to send in some of our security partners to be able to handle crowd control.
That's it.
As the ambulance service does their thing.
That's it.
So it kind of speaks to an ecosystem where it is an emergency and all our services might be required and are required.
That's it.
So the penetration is across all the different spheres that we operate in, be it medical incidences, security incidences, or even roadside assistance related services that might be needed by the users.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Good. Interesting question as well. You've got to answer it. If you look at Israel and Hong Kong, 3 to 12 minutes average. What does the Kenyan government need to do to make it easier for companies like your company to get close to this minute here? Because you might be getting your 10 minutes, but then if you check the overall 2 hours, then we're going to summarize your industry as a 2-hour industry, regardless of what you're doing as Ora Kenya.
100%. Like you said, there is a long way to go, to be honest. Comparing to other markets in other nations, there is a long way to go. And it speaks to collaboration not only between the private players, but also the government as well. So the policies around emergency response services, the infrastructure as well, where now the government will step in and help to address this so that our services and our solutions will then marry seamlessly within that policy and within that framework. So the government needs to create policies that favor our businesses, to thrive well. The infrastructure as well needs to be, top notch. We are talking roads, we are talking, cell phone connectivity, for instance, right? So this is where now the government will ideally step in and, help us to do our work better.
That's it.
Yeah.
Second last question this morning. Every other industry is getting affected by artificial intelligence. And for a tech product, I know you've seen it. Probably you're there now, but could you explain how your service probably is going to morph in the next couple years, or how it has morphed just because you need to move closer and closer to artificial intelligence?
Yeah. We are seeing AI for us as a business being an enabler. An enabler to do our work, better, faster, efficiently. So in the long run, and this is something that we are already exploring in the business, how do we now embed some of these AI services to make our services even much more faster, and much more efficient. So if it gets, if in a world where the AI is able to dispatch much more efficiently that how it's currently being done by our processes and our systems, then by all means we are going to be in that space. So AI already, we are incorporating it into the business, whereby we're able to do, just basic triages, report generation through some of these services, and also that the communication between the responders, our control room and the users. So we're already employing AI to be able to handle some tasks that we've seen, and AI would do better. But then we're also now gearing and developing our ecosystem and framework towards a world where AI, enables us to be much more efficient than where we are currently.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Take 1 minute then to respond to this final question this morning. And this is the most interesting out of all that I got when we floated your post, and I wanted to clear with it. Now, a business owner spoke to me directly yesterday, and this was in Kisumu, that he lost his business back in 2007 during the post-election violence. Said I had a very properly stocked supermarket, had not picked insurance, but then I had a security firm attached to it. During the height of the post-election violence, my supermarket was burnt down. Then he said, I actually called my security firm, but they told me there's nothing that we can do to help in such kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
So he asked, if indeed I get to work with Aura Kenya, what could have they done? Because he said, I called an hour earlier and said that there are youth who are approaching my business. Take 45 seconds to speak to this gentleman.
Yeah.
Could you have saved his business?
Well, to the gentleman, it's quite unfortunate, and really, really sorry that he had to go through that.
Yeah.
But then you'd need to take cognizance of the fact that Aura exists within, policies and rules and frameworks that have been put in place within that business or within that particular infrastructure that we are trying to save.
Yes.
So for the gentleman's case, I don't know because it's handled on a case-by-case basis. But then we also plugged into other, service providers, like the National Police, for instance,
Yes.
whereby in cases where it's beyond what your ideal security firm will be able to handle, then we are able to plug in other resources as well, like National Police and stuff. So ideally looking at it on a case-by-case basis, we would have been very proactive in how we would have addressed that particular scenario and put in all the measures in place to make sure that we save the gentleman's business and premise from going through what it went through.
That's it. Then take 15 seconds.
Yeah.
What would be your word to the general public that is listening to this morning in terms of enhancing the security, this emergency response security services that we're talking about this morning?
My 2 cents will be emergency services is a need.
That's it.
It's like food. You need these products, you need these services, and Aura exists to give you this service affordably. So for anyone out there, any business owner out there who would want to embed this service, into their offering, we exist to help them bridge that gap and save lives.
Very much. Mr. Victor Dera, thank you very much.
Thank you so much
for coming to Look Up TV this morning. And I said it, that emergency response services is not a want. It's saying you need it. And so you gotta figure whether you are covered. And probably it's time for you to start figuring that out. So I give you a challenge this morning. Could you call 999 and see how long it takes for your phone call to go through? Just do that as a practice and see if indeed it does go through. But then Victor this morning is promising if you call us, probably if you're within areas where we are, we'll be there in less than max 10 minutes. We're saying that. Probably it's time for you to put that into practice by talking to them as well and talk to us as well. All right, taking back to the time that he joined us this morning and Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. I am Akiage Simba. And for the best of you, go back and watch this interview. And then I'll see you tomorrow for another conversation as well. Goodbye. Was good? Did you enjoy it? Is it the very first time you doing that?
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about